Welcome to React Roundup. I'm your host for this week, Jack Harrington. And with me are my esteemed colleagues, TJ Van Tol.
Hey, everybody.
And Paige Niederinghouse.
Hi, everyone.
So this week we're going to do something spicy. And we're going to do a panelist episode. It's going to be kind of spicy. So I do want to encourage folks to get on the Discord server. And if you think, oh, man, that was just a terrible hot take or whatever, then just let us have it on the Discord server. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to address controversies this week. This is the Controversies episode. And this could be any kind of controversy in the sort of technology space, I guess. Mm-hmm. And we're going to do it round robin style. So each one of us is going to pick a controversy. But here are the ground rules, y'all. You can't say if. What is it? It depends. You can't say it depends.
Yeah. You just put your foot in the ground. Like,
you gotta take a stand, right? Which is so hard. Because, I mean, how many times you heard your principal or your archer say, oh, it depends. Whatever. So, no, it depends.
Hey, folks, this is Charles Max Wood from Top End Devs. And lately I've been working on actually building out Top End Devs. If you're interested, you can go to topenddevs.com/podcast, and you can actually hear a little bit more about my story about why I'm doing what I'm doing with Top End Devs, why I changed it from devchat.tv to Top End Devs. But what I really want to get into is that I have decided that I'm going to build the platform that I always wished I had with devchat.tv, and I renamed it to Top End Devs because I want to give you the resources that are going to help you to build the career that you want, right? So whether you want to be an influencer in tech, whether you want to go and just max out your salary and then go live a lifestyle with your family, your friends, or just traveling the world or whatever, I want to give you the resources that are going to help you do that. We're going to have career and leadership resources in there, and we're going to be giving you content on a regular basis to help you level up and max out your career. So go check it out at topenddevs.com. If you sign up before my birthday, that's December 14th. If you sign up before my birthday, you can get 50% off the lifetime of your subscription. Once again, that's topenddevs.com.
So speaking of that, I will get us kicked off here, and I'm going to do a little bit of a lightweight one first. TypeScript versus JavaScript on the front end. What say ye?
Well, I can start. I'll pick TypeScript. And I feel like I can say that more authoritatively now. Actually, Paige and I just spent some time working on an app that had been started before and was built with just JavaScript. And it was my first time going back to like a JavaScript only app in a while. And really having that experience makes me remember how much I miss TypeScript, right? Or how much I've come to rely on TypeScript, because I almost regret the very first thing when we started working on that app should have been just to set up TypeScript, honestly, because in the end, we would have ended up net saving time from doing it, just because all the little silly things you hit that you don't realize unless you have TypeScript in place.
Okay, well, I think it is going to be TypeScript in a walk here. So let's add a little bit. Let's make sure that you say, because I imagine there's somebody on here who's like, I'm still JavaScript all the way. Give me a reason why. So what is it? What saved your butt this time? What was like the thing that you lost coming from JavaScript back into TypeScript? And you're like, oh my God, I can't believe we didn't have that. Mm-hmm. TJ?
Well, we had to rename some variables, for example. Okay. And what do you know? There was, when we did the rename, I didn't do a good enough search throughout the project. And there was one that I forgot to rename. And of course, JavaScript doesn't care, right? It'll just go on his way.
Yeah.
But it turns out it subtly broke something in a way that was not immediately obvious, that ended up causing some time to debug. There's also just like communication between different, like just good old fashioned like parsing issues because you don't know what type things are. A lot of it was just the convenience, like not having code like type ahead, code complete. You'd be working on like, okay, well, I need to render the latitude longitude here, but you can't type like .lat and get exactly what it is. It's like, oh crap. Well, what did the backend call it? What did they call it? Latitude? Did it call it LAT? Did it call it like underscore, like position underscore lat? Like, right. So now all of a sudden you're opening 3 more files to find this stupid thing. And it's just little things like that.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. Okay.
And I did get myself with a foot gun for that same project. After we had deployed it, it turned out that there was a bug where half the time the data wouldn't be fetched fast enough and the component would try to render without data being there. So it would give you the white screen of death instead. So just, it would have been great if I had that this is a required prop that has to be passed down before the component can render. So yeah, TypeScript, I like TypeScript for the most part. Sometimes it just gets so complicated trying to figure out what shape this type should be or what interface. When you get beyond strings and numbers and Booleans, it can get a little hairy trying to define things. But by and large, it is very helpful and has probably saved us from a lot of little bugs that would have otherwise just, like TJ said, JavaScript would have just been like, sure, I don't know what this thing is, but I'll just keep on running. And you'll have no idea why it's not there.
Right. Yeah.
I think since this is supposed to be like hot take controversies issue, like I think my position on this has changed because I used to say TypeScript for like bigger projects, like company professional projects, but like JavaScript's probably fine for smaller things. And I think my take on that has changed. So just use TypeScript. Like honestly, even if you're just building like a smaller little thing, because the more you use it too, the more you get used to its sort of strange edge cases, and so you get caught up on them less as well. So I'm fully on Team TypeScript at this point.
Yeah, I'm fully on Team TypeScript too. Obviously, I think done a whole series on it or whatever. Why? I would say, well, for like just in the React case, I think typing a component is way better than using prop types. Right. So prop types, prop types only run at runtime. And so if you don't go and exercise your entire UI, y'all, you haven't actually tested it. And they only warn you, right? And they're only in dev mode, right? So you don't know. And when you do that thing like DJ said, where you change a prop name or you change the shape of something and you change a field, then whoops, now you don't know. But in TypeScript, you run your build and boom, and when you're refactoring, it is huge. You just go and change something. And you're like, here are the 16 places you use it. Boom, boom, boom. Do you want me to change it for you? Yes. Yes, I do. I would like you to do all my work for me. Thank you very much. And I think the other thing about it is, I think people like VS Code is using TypeScript on you anyway. Like it knows the TypeScript bindings of, knows the types of React. And I think when you're in a JavaScript app using React, it's still giving you the hinting that, from React itself, right? So if you like that hinting, just help yourself out, hint with your own data types and all that. Cool. Okay, well, I think we've beaten this horse to death.
Way too much agreement.
No controversy. Paige, make us controversy.
Okay, so a controversial thing that I will bring up is class-based components versus functional programming.
Okay.
Because I've been on both sides, and if it was me just working on a project, I probably reach a lot less for classes, but I know that there are plenty of use cases where it turns out that those are the better solution or a solution that other people might reach for instead. So what do you guys think?
Okay, I'm going to jump in here because TJ got the last one, and I'll jump in first. So, for me, it's functional programming, functional components in a walk. There's not even any question. In fact, I'm doing a video where I'm talking about this, and here are my 3 reasons. One, clearly the preference of the React team itself and the direction that React is going. If you looked at the old docs are all in class components, and the new beta docs are 100% functional components. And there's a reason for that, because number 2, the state management model is just hella better in React component and in functional components versus class components. In functional components, use state and use reducer, use effect, use memo, all that stuff. Even with their janky dependency arrays, is a full-on state manager built right into React. It's a reactive state manager, and you don't get that on the class side. And the result is you get all these awesome hooks. You get like 10 stack React query and all the animation stuff, and you just lose out on all of that. And then third, I think if you learn the functional stuff first, learning class stuff is just wicked easy. If you go on a project that does that, it's just, I think you're going to pick it up on the easy. So there you go. That's my take.
All right, I'll chime in here. I hate hooks. I really we need a controversy here. I think use effect is the most awful API. It's like trying to explain it to someone. It makes no sense. Like it's error prone too. It's basically like a foot gun because you can cause all sorts of problems. You can cause problems that are very hard to debug problems that can get through into production, problems that can like create memory issues, some of the worst things to debug. I don't know. And I feel like that's honestly the biggest thing that I prefer from some of these newer frameworks, the Sveltes of the world, some of the newer ones that are coming up, because that's the main thing they're sort of changing up over React, or at least the main benefit I see, because they're also recognizing, I mean, I'm focusing on use effect, but like even hooks like use state, like they're very confusing APIs. There's a reason that people like Jack have to make YouTube series on this, because they're not APIs. Like you have to go to his YouTube videos to understand what they do.
Yeah,
you're not just gonna.
You're not. You have to hit it over and over and over again.
Yeah, like until you get burned by use effect, you don't know.
Oh Lord,
what it actually does. So the points that Jack's saying are all very true. Like, I mean, I still use hooks in my apps mostly because it's the direction React is heading. It's the direction you see like samples online, right? Like it's harder and harder to find class component examples if you look on Stack Overflow and everything. So I'm using hooks, but I want to make it clear that I'm doing it begrudgingly, and it is not my preference.
I love it.
I love it. I don't like it.
Yeah, okay, exactly.
Perfect. Yes. Okay. Classic. Paige?
I mean, I am on Team Hooks mostly because I learned them, and for the most part, I understand them. I totally just I got myself yesterday though, where I had this component that was re-rendering and I needed the previous state before the re-render, and finally figured out that's what was happening. That state was getting wiped out by a use effect and had to use a use ref. But yeah, those things we shouldn't necessarily have to be aware of, or if you weren't aware of it, you would have spent more time than I did trying to figure out what was going on. But at the same time, everybody is going towards hooks. So if you're in the React ecosystem, you're going to probably want to use them as much as you can, just because that's the way React was built. And if you want to do it the React way and keep up, hooks is it.
It's kind of sad, huh? Like, everybody's like, just hold your nose and do it. It's like you eat your veggies. It's like, nobody's like, whoa, wow, hooks, man. That was the greatest model since everything. And I think it really comes down to the fact that like Svelte and Solid and all the other pure reactive frameworks, they're all compiled, right? And so they get the advantage of saying, oh, look, we can track the fact that you're depending on that variable over there. Right. And automatically, magically do this for you, right? Update it. As opposed to use effect, which basically you have to manage those dependency arrays yourself. And then everybody gets into oh my God, do I put it in the dependency array? Do I not put it in the dependency array? Is it a reference? Is it blah, 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 blah. And it's just,
ESLint throws an
and there's
error.
No way. Yeah. And the best thing you can do is not screw up. And that's never the greatest thing when it comes to architecture. With the use effect, there's 5 ways to shoot yourself in the foot, and there's one way to do it right. And we all do the 5 ways and then do them. Finally, maybe you get it right. Okay.
Exactly.
DJ, you got a controversy for us?
Why don't we do like a mini lightning round here? So
yes, please.
How about the classic tabs versus spaces?
Spaces. 2 spaces when it comes to React.
I would say spaces, but I've recently seen reasons for tabs. So I guess a lot of it depends on how big your IDE is and how much indentation you want.
How's a murky answer, Paige? Come on. Tabs or spaces?
I guess I'm going to go spaces also.
Okay. I am also spaces, but I will say that it kind of depends on just what I'm familiar with working with, because back when I did Java development, there was an entirely tabs ecosystem, and I would have argued for tabs just because of familiarity. But now, like the JavaScript world mostly uses spaces, so I'm there. But I will say that you get used to it. Like now, it's more that like I just want to use what I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, I think it's wherever you go. Anyway, you were saying lightning round, so what's our next lightning round?
All right, light theme or dark theme?
Oh, dark theme, without a doubt.
Theme.
Dark theme everywhere, all day, wherever I can. My IDE, my browser, my database, GUI, all of it.
I'm on dark theme in VS Code all day long, but I don't know. I guess I got the auto switching thing on, and it's kind of cool. Like halfway through the evening, it's like boink, I'm dark, and I'm like, oh wow, it's nighttime now. Isn't that nice?
I kind of want to try that. So I'm team light theme here, but I feel like I'm like a dying breed because it feels like everything's moving dark theme. And I do it partially because doing a lot of DevRel work, I have to share my screen a lot. So I tend to keep all of my stuff just like white background, black text, just very, very simple for like the highest possible contrast. So my terminal is that, my VS Code is that, because like I share my screen or take screenshots so often that I got sick of like having to switch things over. Like if I, had something I needed to share, and then over time I just got used to it. And then that's just my personal preference. But I have been needing to experiment with the stuff, like some of the tech that automatically sort of shifts your colors based off time of day, just because I'm sort of fascinated by that. But I've never bit the bullet and actually tried that out.
It's just a setting on OS 10. It's OS X. It's just like, it's auto and it just goes from light to dark. I don't know. It's light right now. Do we have another lightning?
All right. Favorite browser?
Probably Chrome. I've just been using it for so long. And I know that it tracks everything and Google knows way more about me than anybody ever should. But everything works in it for the most part. We even have some particular features of some of our websites that depend on Chrome because that's the only one that has like serial interfaces built into it, so you can do things. So Chrome,
yeah. I'm just so used to the dev tools.
Yeah.
See, I'm bringing these up partially because I know I can generate at least some controversy.
Controversy.
I am a Firefox fan, and I also feel like I'm a dying breed there. But I like Firefox. Partially because it just runs so much faster and uses so much less memory than Chrome. Mm-hmm. And this became a problem for me when I was doing live streams, and my actual CPU usage and memory usage was an actual concern because I was sharing a video stream, I was sharing my screen, I was running the streaming software. And then I noticed like Chrome was also using like an outrageous amount of like CPU resources. To the fact that like my high-end MacBook Pro couldn't run it and all the streaming software at the same time. And so that's one reason I've liked Firefox. I also it just feels snappier to me. And the dev tools are actually quite good. The Chromes are definitely better. So occasionally I need to switch over when I'm really getting into something specific. But for the common stuff you do for web development, right? I need to go in and tweak some CSS values or
inspect element,
or log, or like the simple things. Those work just fine in Firefox. Yeah. So it's very rare that like I need to go like really advanced debugging and dive into something that's really deep into Chrome. That does happen. DevTools are definitely better there. But if you're frustrated by Chrome at all, you can come over to the dark side.
Well, that reminds me of another controversy you can do.
Go for it, Jack.
But I did have one in the back pocket. So that's Redux versus anything else. And you got to specify what the anything else is.
I mean, if I had to choose right now, okay. I would go with.
You do have to choose right now, just to be clear.
Okay, yeah. So wait, hold on, I didn't get that.
Context, just the context API. Okay. Don't even go for an external state management tool because the times that I've used it in the past, it turned out that we didn't need it after all. Everybody is so concerned about storing everything in their state manager. And it's like, I can count on one hand the amount of times that we actually ended up using or updating that state again in the application. So I think by and large, you just don't need an external state manager most of the time.
Okay. TJ?
Yeah, so my pick is going to be, but I have very little expertise here, so you should take my opinions here with a little bit of a grain of salt. But I also tend to go for simpler solutions. So any of the really simple ones I like, I've used Recoil. I guess that'll be my pick.
Oh, yeah.
Recoil is great I don't think I would use it in like a huge production app that I'm building for like a company or something like that. But if all you need is just you're building a small little app, like some sort of personal project, some sort of like demo, it's just great. It's really simple. You store simple values. There's ways to get derived state. It's just really easy to work with. And I tend to like simple things. I think people reach for things like Redux too quickly, usually. Like there's very legitimate use cases for it, and it's a very powerful library, but it's oftentimes overkill for what you actually need.
Yeah, have you seen that Grug developer thing? Or it's like a kind of caveman developer. And he's like, Grug likes simple thing.
Yeah.
Which is true. I'm all for simple things too. And you know what? I'll back you up on this. I'll say I'm going to go with Jotai which is actually Daiichi Kato's version of Recoil, just because it's in every way, shape, and form better than Recoil.
Yeah.
I put that out there.
I agree. I just haven't, like, it's one of those things where, like, I learned how one used and I don't have needs that go beyond it. But yeah, if you're going I would probably reach for Jotai too.
Yeah. And if you like, sorry.
Oh, well, I would also look into Redux Toolkit because I haven't had the opportunity to use it, but I know that it's supposed to be a lot simpler and easier to get started with than original Redux.
Oh, definitely. If you're going to use Redux, it's like that guy, if I do Redux, I'm going to use Redux Toolkit, absolutely, no question. And it's got the Redux Toolkit query stuff built in, which is basically like a React query built in. And it gives you all of the, is this query pending? Did he get an error? What error was it? Blah, blah, blah. All the stuff that we don't write, when we do our little use effect with the fetches, all of that stuff is in there and good to go. Okay, who's got the next controversy? Big Page, right?
I'll do another lightning controversy, which is font ligatures in your coding IDE or no. And for anybody who's not as familiar, font ligatures is when you'll do the double or the triple equal sign, and it will turn it into a three slashes or 3 lines instead, or you'll do an arrow function and it'll turn it into an actual little arrow in your code. To me, that is like one of the best things that I've ever added to my tooling setup, and I will not go back to ever using a font that doesn't support this.
Wait, why would you want this? I don't understand why.
I don't understand this.
Complete readability is my my thing.
Absolutely.
Is triple equal so hard to read? I don't like. I don't know.
Beautiful. There is a beauty element to code, isn't there? There's an aesthetic. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, there are times when I see people's code and it's a mess. They haven't put it through the linter. It's tabs and spaces, and you're like, are you insane? Right. And looking at really beautiful, well formatted code, it's a thing. It's just there's an artist in me, and the ligatures are great. Italics are great. Like when you get like. And I'll tell you what, that's a spicy take too, because man, I've gotten more than a few comments that are like, this font is terrible on my, and then other people who are like this, well, I can say 90% are like, this font is the best thing since sliced bread. But the other other folks are like, I hate italics and code. How can you read that? That's terrible.
Which font?
I'm probably one of the
Jack.
Let's see, hold on. I'll go check on that. We'll get the answer from DJ.
Go ahead, TJ.
I'm just wanted to let Jack know I'm probably one of the commenters on your YouTube videos. I've been looking at this and my brain does not understand why anybody would want to do this.
Yeah.
Okay, so I jostle around between Operator Mono, which is a pay for font, and JetBrains Mono, which is for free. Yeah. I think I'm on JetBrains Mono currently. And then there's Dank Mono. And and then that's
Yeah, I used Dank Mono, and then Firacode was the free version of it, and it's pretty nice as well.
Well, I will say that at least like this is a local thing, so you can do your own thing, right?
Fair
unless you're screencasting.
Unless you're screencasting, I'm telling you, there's a lot of people out there who'd be like, "Ooh, TJ, that's very sexy. That's a good look you got there in that."
But see, there's a group
up for the light theme.
But here you go, though. Some people will complain about the ligatures, whereas I don't think anybody's going to complain for the lack of ligatures, right? That's my...
Maybe.
Real me.
Only because they haven't seen ligatures and seen the beauty.
I gotta say, it's like I got hooked on them. I went to Nike and I looked over this one guy's shoulder at his code and I was like, oh, wow. What is that?
That's nice.
Kind of thing. Well, that's nice. And he's like, that's Operator Mono, blah, blah, blah. Here's my settings. And I'm 20 minutes later, I was hooked. Done. I don't care how much it costs. Whatever. If I'm looking at it all day and it's like $99
right,
forever.
Worth it.
Done. Yeah. If we're going to pay $20 to go out bowling. Paige, this was a lightning round, though. You have some more lightnings?
Sure. Let's do GraphQL versus REST.
Ooh.
It doesn't seem very lightning roundy.
GraphQL.
Why, Chapman? Why?
Yeah, go.
Oh, wow. Oh, why? Yeah, because it's typed. You know, you can do that same kind of build checking to just make sure that your queries work and all that. And when you change something, you make sure that it's good from front to back. You don't get that with REST. And REST is just sort of, and it's a standard. Like there's, all kinds of toolings. There's Apollo client, Urkel and all that stuff on it. And that's great. Right? Tell me what the REST client is. That's the standard REST client. There's no such thing because REST is this kind of, it's not even a standard. It's just like an idea. It's a concept.
I mean, I'll pick REST, but it's mostly because of familiarity. Like I have not done like a serious deep dive with GraphQL. So I can't say I have a super educated opinion, but I'm very, very used to REST, having used it for over a decade. So
yeah,
sort of stuck in my ways.
I gotta agree with you, TJ. I haven't used large scale GraphQL, and it just seems like the few times that I've set up projects and done it for smaller things, it's so much extra code. It feels like a lot of boilerplate too. And one of the things that is nice and is also a complaint about REST is that you get everything back from an endpoint. Whereas GraphQL, you have to specify every single thing exactly as you want it. But sometimes, a lot of times, actually, that helps me debug and figure out what is this thing named that I need. And I know that you can use like the GraphQL playground and things to kind of figure out what are the options, what are the types, what are the things like that. But REST is just kind of, it seems like a standard that people default to when they're doing projects or when they're doing tutorials or things like that, unless it's GraphQL specific. And same, I've just used it a lot. I feel like I have a pretty good handle on how it works for the most part.
Hi, this is Charles Max Wood from Top End Devs, and lately I've been coaching some people on starting some podcasts and in some cases just taking their career to the next level. Whether you're beginner going to intermediate going to advanced, whether you're trying to get noticed in the community or go freelance, I've been helping these folks figure out how to get in front of people, how to build relationships, and how to build their careers and max out and just go to the next level. So if you're interested in talking to me and having me help you go to the next level, go to topenddevs.com/coaching. I will give you a 1-hour free session where we can figure out what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go, and figure out what the next steps are. And then from there, we can figure out how to get you to the place you want to go. So once again, that's topenddevs.com/coaching.
Can I just take a quick second, though, to say that there is like this half step in here called TRPC, which is kind of like the best of GraphQL mixed with sort of the ease of REST. You can still access it from non-TypeScript thing, JavaScript, iOS, Android, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So it's basically REST, but it does give you that automatic way of like managing the types all the way through. So if you're TypeScript on the back end, you're TypeScript on the front end, it's boom, you're done. It's just really nice. So TRPC, I'd say if you're looking for something REST going upwards, but not all the way to GraphQL, it's a nice spot there. Any more lightning round?
No, let's go on.
Okay. I think it's on me then. So debugger versus console log.
I'm all in on console log. Oh, yeah. I'll take it to my grave.
Nice.
It's just the classic standard. It's almost as good as alert, but better.
Ooh, yeah.
I mean, that was the very, very first thing you learn when you're doing JavaScript for the first time. But yeah, console log. Debugger, I never seem to get the setup right the first time around, and it never stops at the breakpoints that I want it to. So console log is definitely the first thing that I reach for.
All right, console log just works, and it works like the first time. It's like, oh, okay, this is an array of objects, not an object. Okay, right. So I just need to get the first item off the array because that's the way this dumb API works, is that you get by ID returns an array of 0, a 1. What? Okay. Yeah. And the other thing is like, I notice that people don't like use console to its full potential. Like there's a lot. Oh my God, there's so many things on console. You can do so much stuff in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll use console.log even when I know it's completely irrational and I could get my answer way faster by using the debugger. Like for some reason, I view the debugger as like a last resort. And I really shouldn't, because usually it's the fastest way. Unless it's something really trivial, usually the debugger is an easier way to debug the problem. But the nice thing about console log is sometimes in the debugger, if you're in some really complex problem, it can be tricky to keep track of where I am. Like, okay, well, which run through the loop am I on? Or have I jumped in here? Whereas if you're clever with your logs, right, you can see like, oh, I want to see all 10 iterations of this loop all at once, right? Because I'll log them all out. So sometimes console.log is legitimately just faster, easier for your brain to parse than going through a debugger.
Right. And sometimes, you're in that async world where it's like you want to see like, oh, wait, this function is getting called again, but then we're getting the response back. And this is out of order. This is way different than the order that I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I turn this into a lightning round real fast?
Sure.
And because I was just reminded of the fact that like I use console.log because GitHub Copilot writes my console.logs for me right away, which brings me to GitHub Copilot versus not
GitHub Copilot. I tried it. And I found it to be more like it was confusing me. It was not really understanding what I was trying to do. And I just didn't like the suggestions a lot of the times.
Okay.
It was like, I'm also a no on GitHub Copilot, but it was about like 60% annoying, 30% like kind of useful, and then like 10% of the time it genuinely like amazed me, right? It would come up with something like, oh, that's interesting, or come up with something useful, but just it got in the way so much. Just like simple things where I was just like, all I'm trying to do is like do something really simple here, and get a Copilot's like, do you want to take the square root of this? Or it just like come up with this completely irrelevant, like, because it always wants to autocomplete, like always. It always thinks it knows what you want to do. It's oftentimes right, but when it's not, you just want to say like, just get out of like, I know what I'm doing now. Just stop.
Yeah, totally. And I find that in like sometimes when I'm recording videos too. It's like I had this one where it gave me like a full page with a hinting, and I'm trying to like explain stuff, but there's this whole like gray code on the screen. You're like, just ignore all that. That's just Copilot just being just really weird right now. Well, I think that the lightning rounds are like 3. So let me throw in one more lightning round.
Real quick, I want to make one last note on Copilot. The one time I found it useful, and the thing I'd consider going back to it for, is when I've been coding in languages other than JavaScript, like languages I don't know. In that case, it's been outrageously helpful, because like I'll be writing some Python and be like, I have no idea how to loop over an array or whatever they're called in Python, right? But I can, like, Copilot can tell me that like right away. And so if you're unfamiliar with some sort of like API or ecosystem, that might be the time to do your free trial of Copilot and give it a run.
Do they still offer a free trial? I thought I wasn't sure if it was all.
Oh, do they not?
Not.
I don't know. Maybe. I'm Copilot, yes, just to clarify. But I will say, TJ, having said that is almost terrifying in a way, because you know that for every you who's a JavaScript, TypeScript, dare I say, expert, moving to like a Python, there is a Python person who has no idea how to iterate over an array in JavaScript, who's coming back in and using GitHub the exact opposite and checking code into our code bases that are just like, maybe terrible. So there's that.
And it looks like there is a free trial. I don't know how long for, but you can definitely try before you buy.
All right, let me come up with my third here. So Tailwind or a component library. And if you pick a component library, then tell us which one.
Well, I would have to say not Tailwind, definitely component library. And if I had to just pick one component library right now, I'd probably still go with the Ant Design component library, with the Bootstrap one being a strong runner-up, because I've been using both of those pretty heavily.
Okay.
I'm also team no Tailwind. I just can't get over the verbose class name structures. So I'll pick some sort of component library. We've been using Ant Design, and it's been working out halfway decently, so that's not a bad pick. Material isn't. I'm going to violate the law of our rules and not pick a specific one. But I guess if I had to pick one, I'll pick Ant, just because familiarity, but just not Tailwind. I'll put my foot in the ground on that one.
I'm such a Tailwind advocate, but I gotta say, like, for professional work, probably MUI 5, Material UI 5. And part of the reason is like there's a whole ecosystem around it. It's not just the components in the library, which is great, fantastic, but also like the Figma stuff and all the templates out there for folks, so that that kind of communication between your front end, like your UI UX folks and your us on the front end, hey, you start to even like just agree on like a typography. Like, hey, is that a heading 1? Is that a body 1 or body 2? As opposed to like having to literally go through and say, oh, that's 13 pixels. Okay, that's going to be that's going to be a body 2. Like, and then you get it wrong, right? And like, why did you use that font? Like, okay. So yeah. Anyway, that whole ecosystem. I'm rambling. Okay, what do we got? TJ, you want to go with? Yeah.
How about like a corollary of that and CSS and JavaScript? Yes or no?
Oh,
just yes or no?
Well, yes
Separate
or no,
file
maybe like
versus components.
Oh, yes or no. Well, start with a yes or no, and then I'll just elaborate a bit on why or why not.
All right.
Maybe pick a library if you say yes.
I am going to say no. I tried styled components early on in their inception and thought that I liked it, but one of the senior devs on my team pointed out that there's just so much code in one file at that point. And now that I've worked on some larger code bases that have used that sort of style, I hate them. And I wish now that I could extract the code out into its own SCSS file or Sass or even styled modules. But yeah, put them in separate places. They're doing separate things. Just get it out of my way. If I want to write JavaScript, I want to work on logic and components and JSX and not deal with the CSS in the same place.
All right. I'm going to say, well played. I'm going to say CSS and JS, yes. Emotion in particular. Mm-hmm. And it's, again, it kind of aligns with that MUI 5 thing. They use emotion in MUI 5. And, I think it's because I've seen so many times when I'm in projects where they have the SASS file and there's just so much CSS in there and it's unclear, like, is it still being used? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it, is all this stuff important? Like, what's important? Like, is this positioning important? Like, why are you absolute positioning, for God's sakes? Like, it's just hard to, figure out. And like and it's kind of like a thing like, hey, if you have to put a lot of CSS in the component, is that really a good thing? Or should, maybe you don't understand what a button is, or maybe you should use a different thing.
All right. So I'm also no on CSS and JS. I feel like we're singling out Jack for the last.
That's fine. I'm used to it.
Couple minutes. The big thing is, to me, it's similar to Paige. I just find like I want to be writing CSS in a CSS file. It just feels cleaner. Like the even just like the highlighting and like just everything just makes more sense in my editor, keeping things clean and separate. The other thing about CSS and JavaScript, at least the last time I checked, I did not like the runtime hit of having my styles applied as the components were rendered. And I know some of the libraries had been working on ways of doing that, like at compile time or coming up with some ways of doing that. But I haven't researched that in probably a good year plus. So I don't know where all of that is at. But I did not like the fact that was happening at runtime when I first sort of researched this about a year back. So I am a no.
But wait a second. Hold on. So you guys are all, you're into Svelte nowadays, and Svelte has the style tags in the file.
It does. And
it does.
I'm not a huge fan of it.
Oh, okay.
I like how Svelte does it. It's like automatically scope. See, it's separate though. Like it's a style tag in there. It's not just like me writing some weird syntax, like JavaScript syntax of doing CSS. Within that style tag, I can write CSS. So
yeah, that's true. I guess one of my biggest beefs with CSS in JS is that I've worked on a Next project, which I think was using like the most basic CSS styling that Next comes built in with. And it doesn't format correctly. So exactly what Jack was saying, you have no idea if the CSS is even being used. You can't tell where it doesn't, reformat on save. It doesn't highlight. It's just, it's really hard to look at and parse through. And I wish with all my might that it was built with separate CSS files, because it's so hard to figure out what's going on sometimes.
Yeah, it always just, every time I run into a project like that, it just means they really haven't used a design system at all. And it's just literally starting, from a reset. Let's sort of style every page independently. You're like, oh my God.
Right.
No.
It's like, this seems like a proof of concept, not something that has become our production application, which is always what happens.
Yeah. And the CEO is like, I built this app in my garage and this is fantastic. You're like, okay.
Exactly.
Yes, it is, sir.
All right. Paige had a good suggestion in chat, and maybe this would be a good one to end on because it's related to controversial topics. Are there any, like, what sort of silly coding hills are you prepared to die on? Like, what are some of your small little things? And if you need a minute to think about it, I can start with some of mine. So there's a couple settings I have on in my IDE that you'd have to rip away from me. So one is in VS Code, there's a setting to see a thing for a space or a tab. So like it actually shows a character, like it's a tiny little dot for a space. It's a tiny little line for a tab. Mm-hmm. But I'm like OCD about needing to see that. Like, I don't know why, but like my brain works so much better if I can actually see the spaces and not space there. It helps me like, cause my coding brain hates mixed tabs and spaces, right? So I can see that in a heartbeat with that flag set on. And I need, like, this is a hard requirement of me. Like when I first started using VS Code, I had to find that setting. And once I found it, I was like, okay, well, I could do this.
Hey, mixed space, either use tabs or use spaces, but mixed spaces and tabs are a crime against nature.
Yes.
There's no question. No, do not do that. My JavaScript hill, I am actually willing to die on this hill, is const versus let.
Oh, wow.
Don't. Like if it's I use const constantly, literally, and I try to reduce the number of lets in my app down to like 0. Hopefully, it'd be great if we can do 0. And then I see people just like it's a style thing, it's the less characters to use let, and it's like no, you're literally giving up a full language feature, for some aesthetic. Like what? No, this is craziness. Like use const. Yeah. If it's const, use const.
There's
and then the remix guys piss me off to no end because they're like, oh, blah, 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 blah. And it's because, arrays or references and objects are references. Therefore, as const isn't really const. Oh, give me a break. It's a const reference, and then you can also make the as const. Even in TypeScript, you can actually make it const, the contents const if you want. Sorry,
I didn't know that.
That's one I really am willing to die on that hill.
Mine is more of a stylistic thing as well. But whenever I pick up a new project or start a new code base or join a project, the first thing that I want to do always is turn on format on autosave, which is a VS Code setting. Yes. So as soon as you change focus from the tab that you're currently in, it will reformat your code. And then the second part of that, which kind of goes hand in hand, is throwing in a prettier RC file of some sort. And it just can be the most basic, 80 characters for a line, 2 tabs or spaces, and then like hanging commas or something. I don't need much. But I need those 2 things because I cannot really function now without auto-formatting my code after I've finished writing.
It's a validator. It says you got it right. Your tabs are all your braces are all lined up and blah 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 blah. And it's like I'm hitting save and it's like not changing. And it's like I'm missing
something,
a paren or whatever. And then it saves and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I sometimes because I've only started doing this somewhat recently, and I've found it amazing on how often I can use it for exactly what you said. It's almost like a sanity check. Like, crap, did I close all these parentheses right? You just hit save in it and you find out right away.
Nope.
Yep.
Nope.
And if you got it right, it's like, well, that feels like the right number of parentheses. And sometimes you nail it and it feels good. It's like it fixes it all for you. It's like, oh man, I crushed that.
Oh, and can you imagine? Like, this is the reason why I never do Lisp languages, because it's like at least in JavaScript you have curly braces and you also have parens, right? Mm-hmm. So at least there's like sometimes it's like n paren, n curly, n paren, whatever, and you're like whatever. But like there's some differentiation. There's at least 2. But like in an ellipse-based language, it's like literally, so it's like how many ellipses can we throw on this thing until it works?
Chaos.
It's chaos. It's nuts. What are you? You're out of your mind. Yes.
So I've got another small thing, but in my editor, I always like to use some sort of theme or whatever that shows me an icon next to the file name, or more importantly, actually an actual folder icon next to folders, which boggles my mind is not the default. And like, it wasn't the default in Sublime. It's not the default theme in VS Code. So you see like a little arrow right next to a folder name, but not like an actual little icon of a folder. And I don't know why, but I need that actual folder. It's like 10 by 10 pixels, but it grounds me. I don't know.
I love it. Grounds me. That's great.
Yeah, I completely agree. And another thing that is ridiculously small, but also helps me with code validation is bracket colorizer. And there's, there's a million extensions for this now out on VS Code. And there might actually be one that's built into it, but it colors your curly braces, your brackets, your ellipses, your whatever, so that you can tell. And it highlights in red if there's one that's missing or one that's extra. So it helps you figure out where did I screw up?
Oh yeah,
and it's pretty helpful. Yeah. I love it.
Drop a link, man. I know mine is the bracket colorizer that I use is saying like, this has been deprecated for 100 years. Why are you using this kind of thing?
Yes.
I think there are this. So whatever you use and it's not deprecated, please let all of us.
All right, I got. Since we're on the topic of editors, I've got one last lightning round one.
Okay.
Editor minimap, yes or no?
Oh, hot garbage, throw it away. I don't even use it. I use it mainly for scrolling or to pick out like when you got like mergers. That's it. That's basically all I ever use it for.
I threw mine out. Like, I still can't believe, I think it's still the default though. Like it's default
definitely
on, and I don't get it. Like it's like the first thing I do in any editor is like, oh crap, that stupid thing's on. What's the setting and to shut it off?
I'm going to turn it off right now because I thought
hide it. You'll sleep better tonight.
Since I've never used it, what does it actually do for you?
Nothing. It does nothing.
I think in theory it's supposed to be like, because it gives you an area like, because you see your whole file like in a mini map. So if you wanted to like quickly go to the bottom of the file, you'd like click the bottom of it. But the thing is, you could also just, I don't know, hit the scroll wheel for a half second to get where you need to, or like, I don't know. I've just never gotten it.
Plus, if your file's that big, break it up.
Yeah, that too.
If
you need a mini map of your file,
right?
Maybe that's a sign.
That's a sign, from the man from heaven, coding heaven.
I think I just completely ignored it and never even registered that it's there and doing something.
It's randomly taking up 5% of your screen. You're like, just give that away. Just give that screen real estate away. Who needs that? All right. Well, this has been phenomenally fun, but I think it's time for picks. So, let's do some picks.
Hey, folks, if you love this podcast and would like to support the show, or if you wish you could listen without the sponsorship messages, then you're in luck. We're setting up new premium podcast feeds where you can get all of the episodes released after Christmas 2020 without the ads. Signing up will help us pay for editing and production, and you can go sign up at devchat.tv/premium.
TJ, you want to kick us off?
Sure. I'm going to pick Portal 2, which is now available on the Switch. I think I might have picked Portal 1 before because they released them as a package that you can buy on the Nintendo eShop for the Switch. And I had played Portal 1 back in the day. It's a decently old game. It's probably one of my top 5 or 6 games all time. And I'd never played Portal 2 though. I don't know why, for whatever reason. And we started playing it this weekend, and it's just a bunch of fun. It's it's a sequel to the original. So if you know, the original story is like legendarily good, and the sequel builds on top of it. So we've had a lot of fun playing through it. It runs pretty good on the Switch. It's good enough. And just, you get all the advantages of playing on a big TV Switch controller. So we're having fun with it.
And there's a song. There's actually genuinely good song that came out. I think Portal 1.
It's the end credits of,
it's great.
Yep.
Yeah. And I played it on the way to a robotics tournament once with all these robotic geek kids, and we were just all yelling the song. It's hilarious.
If you want to relive it, it's good. It's quite good to play over again, because I remember part of it, but not all of it. So it was a lot of fun to go through again.
Yeah,
it's a pretty quick game too. You can beat it in, I don't know, it probably took us 8-9 hours. But I'm also playing with some 11-year-olds, so we're if you really know what you're doing, you could. If you really know what you're doing, you can probably get through it in 5-6 hours.
There you go. All right, Paige.
Nice. My pick this week is going to be the movie that came out about a month ago now called Bullet Train, which is the Brad Pitt one. And it's fun from beginning to end. It's not for kids. There's plenty of samurai swords and death and destruction. But it's really entertaining, and it's kind of one of those breakneck speed films where it just doesn't stop moving the whole time. So and it was really entertaining. I found myself laughing a lot. So if you kind of like the absurd and you like Japanese and anything related to Japan, because this all takes place on a bullet train in Japan.
Oh, right. Makes sense. There's no bullet trains in America.
Yeah, not yet.
This is single tier.
Right. I would say it's definitely worth going to see either in theaters or whenever it comes out on, streaming is a good one.
Definitely a regret I have going to Japan, not actually jumping on a Shinkansen. That would have been really cool,
Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah. I gave in to some ads online and got a Solo stove. The I don't know, maybe you've seen it in your browser too, like, the smokeless kind of outdoor fire pit. And we tried it out a couple nights ago, and nobody was on their phone. Everybody was just staring at the fire, telling stories. And it was just nice, like it was kind of cool. I mean, we did the s'mores thing, and it was just nice, So, I mean, maybe make a fire pit in your backyard. I know it's fire season and all that. So for a lot of people, obviously California is like getting hit hard, heat and all that. But like when it cools down or starts to cool down as much as we cool down nowadays, yeah, it's nice.
I'm going to check this out because our deck has a hole in it for a hot tub. And our hot tub is long since broke, and I'm like sick of maintaining the thing. And so our thought is like, well, but the problem is we have a hole cut for a hot tub in the deck. And so one of our thoughts was like to turn this into like a mini like fire pit. And this might work quite well for that, honestly.
Tell you what, my next door neighbor had a party the next night, and he has a homebrew fire pit. Literally just like go to Lowe's, get a bunch of bricks, throw them around, there you go, bang, fire pit. Bang,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was smoky, and you're sitting there like, oh, well, that sort of thing. But this one, no. I mean, we hung about around it for like an hour and a half, and like didn't smell like smoke the next day. Easy to control. And it's on my deck. It's on my wood deck. But you got to just, there's a ring that you can get around the bottom for it to lift it off the deck a little bit. And then I got a spark mat so that, the little pop, the sparks would go off. They wouldn't obviously ignite our deck, which would not have been great.
Yeah.
But it works great. It's awesome.
Nice.
And it's really nice, guys. I mean, you got out there with the kids, the fam, just chilling. And it's just nice to be off the phones for a while. It reminded me of like 20 years ago when, would have, decent conversations with folks, and they're not just like getting their 8 hours a day of screen time in.
Jack diving into the Controversies episode till the end.
Right. Yeah. Phone, no phone.
Yeah, TikTok, no TikTok.
Yeah, I find myself wanting to unplug a lot more than I used to. I feel like lately, especially, I've been using my phone and all the social media stuff as a crutch. So I'm trying to be a lot more cognizant of how often I open those apps, and just trying to not do it as much personally.
Life and people are so much more fun than social media.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. Well, this has been awesome, guys. I mean, it's really fun. These panelist episodes are really great, and I enjoy them a lot. Hope y'all listening do too.
Yeah, of course. Jump in our Discord if we're wrong about any of this. So
give us some grief. Yeah. Tell us about how you like mixed tabs and spaces. You maniac.
Tell us about the hill that you're willing to die on.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I'm sure there are a lot. Okay. We'll see you all next week.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CacheFly.com to learn more.